I want to introduce the other young writer to the left of me, Amy Dawson Robertson. This is a book that I am really excited about. I was absolutely thrilled to get my mitts on with this editor. Thank you. It's a departure in terms of maybe some of the novels that you read out of Bella Books, but this is a barn burner, a novel. I guess if I had to sum it up in a line, it's the story of the first woman who achieves the level of getting into special operations, the counterterrorism branch of the FBI. It's a story that absolutely grabs you by the throat from the first page. I urge you to have the time to read the book once you start it. You'd be surprised how many times you go through a book as an editor, and every time I still feel gripped by the throat. Anyway, to back up a little bit, Amy's come to us from the Washington, D.C. area, fled the snow. She's had certainly some military background in terms of where she went to college, school, graduated from St. John's Annapolis. She's a native Virginian. Anyway, to tell you a little bit more about the book, Rennie Vogel is the major character, and she becomes the first woman in special ops almost by congressional edict. It takes that, as you can imagine. I don't know why we would be surprised. It's been the same with almost everything for women. Anyway, everything about this book is really interesting. The training sequences I found were just enormously involving. Anyway, she eventually ends up being dropped behind enemy lines in the Middle East. Then I'm sorry, my partner likes to tell me all the time, would you please finish one of the 8 sentences? Anyway, you know, one of the things that I know that women never ever get tired of is reading about strong women in our fiction. And this is a strong woman. This is really, she's just emblematic of she faces all kinds of problems, as you might imagine, with tremendous ingenuity, personal determination, personal integrity, loyalty, teamwork, strength, courage, and of course, needless to say, her life is complicated by another woman, as are all of our lives. Anyway, with that, this is Amy Dawson Robertson with Miles to Go.
Set a little context first. I'm going to read a selection from the beginning of chapter 1. After completing 2 weeks of physical trials, Rennie Vogel is one of 2 women chosen for CT3, the new FBI International Counterterrorism Team. Agent McPherson, the team's agent in charge, decides that the 2 women will serve as alternates to the team. But the woman with the best score, Rennie, will be given one last chance to run the 7.5-mile obstacle course against the man with the lowest score, John Smythe. The prize, a permanent spot on the team. Rennie took the bear pit quickly, crawling on forearms and knees, dust flying into her face, and then tore off toward the wall. The 8-foot obstacle is difficult for the men as well, she reminded herself. The boards were fitted so that it was impossible to get a foothold, which meant a well-timed jump and focused upper body strength were absolutely necessary to get you up and over. Rennie caught a glimpse of Smythe as he reached the wall, but his focus on it was complete, and he didn't hear her. A flower of calm bloomed in her chest. Here it was, 50 yards. She concentrated on running as fast as she could. As Smythe reached the top of the wall, he turned and spotted her coming at him. The look of alarm twisting his features was one she knew he didn't show often. Then she saw the startled look quickly turn to anger before he dropped to the other side. This was it. She ran toward the wall headlong, and everything seemed to slow. The breeze cool against her face, she felt like she filled the parameters of her being completely, and when she leapt, she knew every fiber of her muscles was engaged in getting her over. She flew at it and caught the top board under her arms, her chest and hips and knees bouncing so hard against the wooden planks, she almost knocked herself off. In her mind, she glimpsed herself, as if she stood off to the side, the wall in a deep embrace, her body arcing upward, legs bent toward the sky, until gravity pulled her back down. She captured her breath and pulled herself up the few inches she needed to hook her knee over. She dropped off the edge, hit the ground hard, rolled, and was up and running. She saw the top of Smythe's head and took off after him. McPherson checked his watch. It had been nearly an hour. They should be out of the woods soon. At least Smythe should be. He knew Smythe could beat Vogel. Any one of the men could, but he wondered by how much. McPherson was glad that selection had finally come to an end, and hoped that this little exercise he was putting Smythe and Vogel through would show his superiors the futility of trying to integrate women into high-level special forces teams. "Look," Perez pointed towards the woods. "There he is." McPherson turned to see Smythe running toward them. He wasn't far out of the woods, and he looked haggard, but the experiment was almost over. "Okay, people, back it up. Clear the finish line. Make room for the man." Then, suddenly, everyone's attention was riveted on Smythe. He was running hard, but he kept turning his head back toward the line of the woods. Everyone followed his gaze. At that moment, Vogel burst through a mass of leaves, running full tilt. "Here she comes," McPherson muttered under his breath. Rennie's feet pounded the ground so hard she thought she could feel it give way. This was the way she liked it. As the woods were too far ahead, he turned and met her eye and stumbled slightly. She could do this. The finish line was a little less than half a mile away. As she closed the distance, she could see the crowd gaping. She saw their mouths moving, too, but no sound could penetrate her focus. She could hear her own heartbeat, though, steady and even, and she used its perfect thump to concentrate everything she had on running faster than she had ever run. She felt the pain in her legs, the pain in her chest, but it was just pain. It hurt, and she loved it, feeling it deeply, and knowing it couldn't do anything to slow her down. And she didn't slow down. Every second she closed in on Smythe. Poor Smythe, she thought. Poor Smythe, poor Smythe, poor Smythe, with every beat of her feet. Poor Smythe, poor Smythe. And she was past him. And then, sensing him at her heels, she picked up the last bit of speed that was left in her and ran for the finish. Nina caught Rennie as she tore through the cones, Rennie nearly knocking her down. "You did it." Nina had her tight around the waist. They were chest to chest, and it felt so good. Rennie could see McPherson standing with his hands on his hips, watching them, and saw everything she had just accomplished begin to shake under his stare. "I need to sit down," she said, pushing Nina away from her. Nina would understand. She knew how things worked. Rennie lay down flat on the cold ground and closed her eyes. When she opened them, she saw a large pair of boots in front of her. She squinted into McPherson's face. "Congratulations, Vogel. You're a full member of the team." Then he squatted down next to her and leaned in close. "Let's hope to God you don't screw things up."
Amy tells me she's about a quarter of the way into the next book. You'll be sending her emails telling her to hurry.